What are we witnessing, bro? Is this a ritual that we're witnessing, or what?
It is connected to a summer solstice ritual.
Catastrophic end. The Titan submersible went missing while on a journey to see remains of the Titanic.
Whenever you see something in the mainstream media and people are taking it and passing it along, where attention goes, energy flows, and we have here this worm that allegedly King Solomon had, right? And it's this worm that can eat through stone. After the destruction of the temple, I believe is how the lore goes, the worm disappeared, right? It went away. It lost its magic. It looks eerily similar to the submersible. The 19-year-old victim was Suleiman. It's Arabic version of Solomon. So I was like, wait, what? James Cameron, how he keeps talking about how he's been to the Titanic wreckage 33 times. So you have the 33 in there. I just found it so odd, right? The Titans, they are imprisoned in a cavity underneath Tartarus, right? And what happened to this submersible? The Titan disappeared at the bottom of the ocean. Then you have the story of the Titan. Was it the twin of the Titanic?
Which way did Mason go?
Simpsons talking about it. Supposedly they predicted it 17 years ago. 17 is also a number in Pythagoreanism. A lot of things. I don't know. It's just odd. The Titanic is linked to quite literally the creature of Jekyll Island and the Federal Reserve. So it all comes full circle, in my opinion.
5 victims were lost. So 5 people died, and that's the pentagram. The 5 slain during the Charles Manson Beverly home invasion. Jack the Ripper, the 5 women ritualistically killed. The Zodiac killer, the 5 people. Right there, a sacrificial element, and it took place on the summer solstice when they all passed away.
Well, a couple of these names need some of their details drawn out into the light here. You know, James Cameron is a JC. So we have it's also a 1-3. 1-3 is the M. It's the middle letter of the alphabet. It's the liminal space. Also, Solomon, it's spelled very interestingly. It's not like your classic spelling. It's Suleman, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so
like Suleiman.
So you can extract the lima out of the middle of there, and that's the moon pillar, and the remaining letters, as they stand, spell sun. So you pull out the luma from his name, and what is remaining is SUN. So now you have your 2 pillars of a Masonic tracing board. You got your sun pillar and your moon pillar in his name.
Yeah, I think that life imitates art, right? Because you have all these shows. Reminds me of the story of Jack Parsons and his little crew, right? The Suicide Squad over at JPL. And everything that happened in the story kind of came true in real life. So they were practicing this sort of mimetic magic back then, but they were doing kind of sort of what's happening now with The Simpsons.
And then we have this push that was held off for a long time, where we had Avatar, which was a big push, but now water, the way of the water. So this whole thing of getting us into the water and his whole part of the spell with it, because as long as James Cameron is attached to the only one allowed to see this wreckage, the story just continues. So if he's the one rewriting the history for the story, the Avatar movie just continues. But I think the Abyss movie is a huge movie that has all these attachments to this, even the way the Simpsons submarine shape looks just like if you watch the villain in the Abyss when he's falling down into the final black hole, he gets capsized, implosion. So this word implosion, they really want to be in our zeitgeist right now. This is a huge word they want to put in there. And it also seems important to me, you brought up the Titans earlier. So we have the Titanic, we have the Titans, the ship was called the Titans again. So it's like, I always think they try to do this word spelling with us. But this movie, everybody should go back and see it, because it also all attaches to Blue Beam. The best thing they'll have us doing is looking up the entire time why the fake UFO invasion comes out of the ocean.
Isn't it sad that you a whole billionaire?
He was visiting Blink 182 concerts. He liked Blink 182, and they're a big part of this alien agenda. But when they were looking for him, that's where the family was going to Blink 182 concerts amid the search. Now, the Blink 182 connection is crazy because World UFO Day is on July 2nd, leaving 182 days left in the end of the year.
I mentioned this earlier, right? The wreck of the Titan This was a story published in 1898. It's a fictional British ocean liner named Titan that sinks in the North Atlantic Ocean after striking an iceberg.
The imagination, people say the imagination isn't real, so when you're stretching, well, imagination turns out to be real.
On top of that Titan fictional story that came true in the Titanic, there's another parallel to that predates it. Edgar Allan Poe, the only novel he ever wrote, a novelette, it was a small novel, was called The Narrative of Arthur Gordon Pym of Nantucket. And it was a story about a shipwreck and a couple of survivors on a dinghy. There's a cabin boy named Richard Parker, and Richard Parker ends up getting the short end of the straw when they have to choose who's going to get eaten to survive. I believe it was 12 years later, the entire story comes completely true with incredible amount of detail. And then they go in front of the Supreme Court of the United States and they put their entire story on record. It's immortalized on the highest order of writing that there is. It's non-fictionalized. That's as non-fiction as writing gets, is to have it in a court case. And all of the details from Edgar Allan Poe's book are there laid out to bear, including Richard Parker getting eaten. And that is the foundation of The Secret Life of Pi that came out in 2012, same year as the Smith Modernization Act, where they're with reality and fiction. And what's the last line in the movie? The guy who's going to write the book, he says, so which is true here? You got the story you told me that is all fanciful with a tiger, but then I'm seeing there's evidence that those were actually people eating each other on the boat with you. Which story is true here, buddy? And the character who lived the entire survival story, he looks him right in his eyes and he says, which story do you prefer to be true?
Leonardo, he's speaking at the UN. He's going through massive rituals this year, humiliation rituals with him, dating younger girls and then getting shamed publicly in a public forum. And he's also going through this big scandal in Malaysia, all in the 111th year of the Titanic sinking. And in the movie Infinity War, the Illuminati banded together to fight Thanos on Titan. They died on the solstice. I'm looking out for these solstice rituals. The day that they died was the summer solstice.
It's like clockwork. It's almost like it was planned.
It went down and they had 96 hours. Well, that's the 69, the 96 on the top of the Royal Ark for the summer solstice.
It's really fascinating that the Titanic went down on a crucial location on the Analima at the X. And now here we are at the top of the Analima. We're literally at the pinnacle of that figure eight in the heavens when we're recreating yet another ritual to these dynamics of the realm.
So the Titanic was right here in the X when it sank. And right here is when the solstice is?
You got it, man. Yep. That's Christmas. Yep. Down there is
solstice.
You got it, man. And there's 3 days down there as well. It does the same thing, the 3 days in place.
Were they underwater for 3 days?
Yes.
Chariot was under the water for 3 days.